the aftermath of the violence. It was pretty late in the day, and yet the corpses were still littering the streets, corpses everywhere, in the middle of sewage, next to shacks. And I photographed this. It was right at the beginning of my career, so I was completely kind of overwhelmed by what I was seeing. And covered that as well as I could, made the images, and we decided to leave. And as I was driving out of Tukoza, past the main hostel, which incidentally is, the speaker is made less than 100 meters where Greg was shot and Ken was killed a few years later. And as we're driving out, suddenly this pack of women just descend on another woman, and they just start, laying into her and beating her. And, I immediately bailed out the car and started taking pictures. And out of nowhere, this man walks into the frame, he looks at the scene, not even phased, continues walking, and then he sees me and he smiles. He's not smiling as a result of the scene. He's smiling at my presence with the camera. But, just the whole content is just so bizarre, so, paradoxical in so many ways. And again, it's one of those incidents when you don't really know what's happened. It was in front of a hostel, but it was early on in the war. As Greg explained, later on, all the areas around the hostels, which were occupied by the residents of Tukoza, all those areas were eventually purged. All those houses, whole neighborhoods, were eventually razed to the ground. People were killed and civilians left. But this was early on, so there's still a lot of residents living in these houses that you see in the background. But these women are definitely hostel dwellers, because the minute we arrived, started taking pictures, and they were done with her, they all fled into the hostel and they left it lying on the ground. But I still don't know why. I don't know if she was maybe committing adultery, if she was possibly a resident of the hostel and the woman decided to gang up on her, or was she a member of the community and the hostel dwellers attacked her for that reason, because at that point the violence was escalating. But again, it's one of those things that you never get an answer for, because the minute it was over, the cops arrived, the woman dispersed, she was still alive, she was blood in the back of the van, the cops disappeared, and you're standing there in the middle of the street holding your camera wondering, what the fuck? What have I just witnessed? And it's significantly, I'd seen a certain amount of aftermath up until that point, but I've never seen raw violence happen to this extent. I mean, I'd seen guys having punch-ups and that kind of stuff, but, there's a sequel, there's just an assortment of weapons in there, and I'd never really seen anything like that. And that stuck with me for a long, long time. Sadly enough, much later, I was going to see a lot more horrific scenes than this. But still, being a young photographer and getting exposed to it, it was pretty overwhelming.